Well, let's see. Hopefully that's back here. I had some difficulties earlier, so I appreciate that. Hopefully, I was talking the whole time, so nobody probably heard me. So I appreciate people were tuned in. They said you're not getting any sound. Hopefully that's better, guys, and hopefully you can hear me. But I was saying there's a lot of big jobs across college basketball that are open, and I'm talking about the Indiana job because I would say if I'm the athletic director, I make 3 phone calls. One of them is to Brad Stevens, who's the GM for the Boston Celtics, who turned it down and said, "Not interested." And he went on the great run at Butler when he was coaching in college, and I think he's a star, and I'd love to see him back coaching. Number 2, I call Steve Alford. Steve Alford played for Bob Knight at Indiana. I think would be a dynamite, hire. I think it would be a lock for him. He made some comments yesterday, I think, after the Nevada game. That's where he's at right now. And he might be one of those coaches that hasn't been able to adapt to the portal. So that might hurt because Indiana's got a lot of money. And then the third name I would call is Chris Beard, who's the coach at Ole Miss, who was an assistant coach on Bob Knight's staff at Texas Tech, and he was also, I believe, an assistant in Indiana. Got himself in a little bit of trouble at Texas Tech, but here he is again. He's resurrected the program at Ole Miss. So those would be the 3 names that I would call for the Indiana job. So if you're listening, I apologize. I had a little bit of a mic hiccup this morning. If I'm getting sound now and you're watching, just in the comment box, thumbs up, sound is good to go. So we'll get more into some college basketball, but without further ado, I want to bring on Damien Call. So let's bring on Damien. How you doing, my friend?
How you doing? I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So listen, I appreciate you taking the time this morning. I had to reach out to Coach Medicis and see where you were in the all-time scoring ranks. He said you're third. So
Right.
I want to go back to high school for a minute with you fast. And you were so fun to watch play, and I followed your entire career. So it's been fun. But I want to go back to your high school career first. And when you look at the program where it is today, to even when you played, you kind of got this thing going for Coach Medicis, but to see Rome Free Academy basketball where it is today and back on the map, what's that mean to you?
No, I mean, I think Medicis has been doing a good job since, since he got the job, since, a couple guys before me, like TJ Balin, Tristan Humzinger, Ethan Powell, guys like those. No, it's super awesome to see where the program is. They're obviously, they were 17-0 and didn't end up how they wanted to this year. But, I think just, having those off-season workouts that Medicis is always having during the summer, getting on the track. I know he's still doing all that stuff. So I think, him consistently doing that stuff has helped build that program to where it is today. And, this year he had 3,000-point scores. So that just goes to show, the conditioning that they put in and, all the skill work and stuff. But it's super awesome to see, he just keeps growing and growing as a program, trying to make that extra push towards that section title.
Damien, do you have a special memory from your high school playing days that stands out to you?
I mean, I would say probably either the Henniger win my last year in sectionals where we went to Henniger and won, or I would say the West Jenny win, beating the number 1 team in the section. I don't know what they were ranked state, but they were one in our section, and we were the 9 seed barely getting in. So I think, those 2 games were the most memorable, just playing with the team and, just the environment, playoff environment, especially West Genesee, the gym being packed, and you're up against the number 1 team in the section. So I would say those 2 memories for sure.
Yeah, listen, I'd have to agree with you, and I'd have to probably tell people that when they ask me, because when I played basketball, we weren't very good. And I'm talking back in the late 90s. But I would probably say that West Jenny win against they were number 1 in the sectionals, and I think they were top 5 in the state.
Right.
I'd probably say that might be Nick's biggest win so far in the history of the program.
Yeah, that was a huge win. I mean, to go into their place, especially when they're number 1, and like you said, I think they were top 5 or something in the state with Will Mika and players like that, and then their good coach Kent over there.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, they're just tough gym to play in, especially with those rims and the student section sitting right behind, their rim. But no, it's definitely, that I would say is my most favorite memory for sure.
So, Damien, you graduate from RFA as one of the all-time greats to come out of Rome, and you make the decision to play here locally at Utica University, which again, great career, and we'll get into that. But what went into the decision-making process? I know you had some schools that were looking at you, but what went into your thought process, and how did you end up deciding on Utica?
Yeah, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. I know I played AAU ball, traveled a little bit. So, I kind of knew what playing out of the state or out of the area, what it might look like. But, at Coffee, Coach Coffee was recruiting me since I was a sophomore, and then he kind of got away from me, just saying like, I don't think you're gonna. He said, I don't really think you're gonna come to Utica. Like, I think I don't want to sound like cocky or something, but he said like you might be too good for Utica when I was a sophomore, and then we kind of linked up back around the end of my junior year, senior year, as I was trying to make a decision, and he just I think I just wanted to stay local. Stay around my family, like allow my family to, watch me play, watch the team play. Thank God we had all the success we did through all that hard work and stuff. But I think, just Coach Coffee coming to a majority of my games my senior year, I want to say him and the assistant coach made it over to, I want to say we had 20 games. They made it to at least 15 of them. So I know just the effort, being valued. I wanted to be valued. I wanted to be, put somewhere where I could make a difference, immediately. And then, kind of COVID messed the whole first year up and stuff. But I think those were the main points, just Coffee in the program, showing interest, showing, what I would be able to do in the program, and just stuff like that. But, just being down the road from Rome and allowing, my family to be there and, others that are from around here, allow them to watch me play.
And you guys have been on a great run too in your time there. I think you guys have made it 3 NCAA tournament appearances, and you went back to back this year in the Empire 8, and you guys finished with 21 wins and an NCAA tournament spot. Talk to us about your career when you started at UC to your senior year, and again, 1,000-point scorer, which is fantastic to have 1,000-point score in high school and then do it at the college level. But from your freshman year until your senior year, how'd you develop?
Yeah, no, I think I developed a lot. My freshman, sophomore year, I was a younger guy. There's a lot of older guys on the team. I was just kind of following their lead, and whether it's games or workouts or whether we were hanging out or stuff, they were always good guys to follow, especially in the basketball aspect of stuff. So I was just kind of following them, following their lead. It was ultimately their team. They were the juniors and seniors of that group. They've been playing together for 4 years. So I was just, playing with them, developing. The COVID year was a little weird, but then once I got back into, my sophomore year, things started to get back to normal. But I think really after that sophomore year, I had the injury where I tore my UCL and my thumb. So I was out for like the first half of my junior year. And then after that, I think finished that junior season. I think we lost in the semis. So our season was cut short, even though we were the 1 seed. But I think after that, through my freshman, sophomore, junior year, those years I was, I don't want to say following, but, I was just kind of there, following the lead from others, the older guys on the team. But I think after that, so my past 2 years, I really had to develop into a more complete player, kind of, whole floor, not just, offensively or defensively, doing all the little stuff. And I also think I had to grow into, more of a leadership role, being the team captain the past 2 years, and then with Justice and Tommy last year, and then just by myself this year. I think, growing into that leadership role has helped me, helped the team. So I think that would be one of the biggest changes. But I think developing wise basketball, I think just, improving my ball handling. I think I did that well over my 5 years at Utica. Shooting, adding a little mid-range fadeaway, instead of sometimes when I can't get all the way to the rim, stuff like that. And, I think I improved a lot on the defensive side, being more versatile at the end of the season. I'm considered a forward or a wing. At the end of the season, I was stuck in the playoffs guarding, little guards running around, 6-foot guards that are quicker, faster than me. So, I think that's where I've changed the mostly. Defensively, and then just adding like that mid-range, and just trying to take better care of the ball, but also that leadership role, especially the past 2 years that we won.
So take us through the Empire 8 tournament. You guys played Nazareth, who you guys, I believe, had split during the regular season. I think you beat them in overtime at home.
Right.
You beat Houghton 80-68, and then I wasn't at the championship game, but from everybody that was at that game against SUNY Poly, they said that was one of the best atmospheres at a college basketball. And I'm saying at Division 1, 2, or 3 level, that was one of the best atmospheres. Take us through first the championship game and what that atmosphere was like.
Yeah, the atmosphere was crazy. Easily the craziest atmosphere I've played in college, or I'd say ever, really. I mean, RFA was pretty crazy too, but that was just a whole different experience. I mean, coming out, you got an hour until tip off, and the gym's already, the poly side is already full. They got there super early. So you got people, talking to students. They got their student section. So it was all obviously you're a little nervous, got a little butterflies and stuff. It's championship game, and I mean, couldn't script it any better against Poly, in Utica, right across the road. So I think just walking out there, seeing all the people, how loud it was, they had to stop letting people in. So I think just that experience in itself, was a great experience for us and our team, and Coach Coffey. And I don't think he's ever had an experience that can quite live up to that, because it was just insane. But the game was crazy. People screaming after every basket, after every play, and playoffs, every possession matters. So you really got to lock in and get through that whole game, with your team. But it was just a crazy atmosphere. We had a very good first half, scoring like 50 something points, going on a crazy run that really helped us win the game. But it's super crazy atmosphere. I mean, with Coach Schoner and Coach Coffey, the two programs that they built, and then just everybody that came out. No, it was easily the craziest atmosphere I've ever played in, ever.
So you guys win the Empire 8. You get a date in the NCAA tournament. Did you guys have a watch party like you see on TV with all these colleges? How was the watch party?
Yeah, no, it was good. Our watch party has changed from years to years. We used to have it in like this little pub spot at Utica on campus where like other people could come and they'd put on the TVs. But this year we kind of just chilled with ourselves in the locker room, just watching it on the TV, having like a watch party. Had some people from Utica there, like like some photographers, some people that work media and stuff. But really just ourselves, because we thinking in our head, the season's not done. We knew we had a shot to make a run in the tournament, and we knew like once we got that team, we were to focus from there and focus on them. But yeah, we did have a little watch party in the locker room that day of. So
you guys get an opening round game. Well, you get Montclair State, who's really good.
Yeah.
In the tournament, and you guys, it looked like it was a tale of two halves, right? The first half, you guys were neck and neck, and then they got up double digits on you guys. Then you guys, I think, cut it to single digits with about 5 or 6 minutes left to play.
Right.
Talk to us about that game.
Yeah, I mean, that game, we had the whole week to prep for it. So, I mean, NCAA game, we're traveling out to New Jersey Thursday. So we're there Thursday, practicing in their gym, getting ready, getting comfortable. And then Friday, we got tip off. I mean, it was just them, studying what their players do. They just like we did RFA in high school. They press the whole game. They like to play fast, shoot threes, get layups. They had a kid transfer from Rutgers. He was like number 1 in points per possession in the country for D3. So it was kind of crazy. He shot like 50% from 3, shot like 300 on the year. It was ridiculous. But just playing against a system like that, super fast. I mean, how it is, especially with RFA, just trying to take care of the ball. So I think in that first half, we did a good job taking care of the ball, taking our time. And then I think in the second half, we just kind of got away from that. And we just got caught in their pace a little bit at times. They made some runs, some quick runs, turn the ball over, they hit a 3, and then, turn it over again. It's another 3. That's a 6-point swing. So I think, the first half we did very well, taking care of the ball, getting where we wanted. But then the second half, I think that pace got to us, that press got to us. We turned it over a couple times. They capitalized on it, and they were the 13th team in the country, so you knew they were going to capitalize on it. And they've been doing this all season, pressing and stuff. So just a crazy game to play in. I mean, Montclair State's a way bigger school than Utica, out in New Jersey, like 20,000 compared to Utica's 3,000. But I think we had it at halftime. Like you said, we were down one and we were neck and neck. But second half, they hit some threes and couldn't crawl our way back from that 15, 12 point deficit.
I know as a young kid, even myself today, and I wish I was a young kid again. And I was just saying before I came on the air, I get all excited because I'm a college football junkie, but I
Right.
love college basketball. And today's the greatest day of the year when we get the selection show, and then we'll fill out the brackets. And,
Yeah.
at any level to play it at a high level, whether it's Division 1, 2, 3, I always think it's special for these tournaments. And you got an opportunity in your college career to play in an NCAA tournament. What's that mean to you? And I'm sure you were a young kid filling out brackets, get all excited for March Madness. How cool was it for you to play in an NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I can't even describe the feeling, be able to go, being able to go travel somewhere. I mean, with your teammates and your coaches, you're hopefully coming off that high of, winning a championship, and you got, motivation to go make a run in the tournament. But I mean, it's just a super surreal feeling. I mean, once you just get there, I mean, once you enter the month of March, it's just a whole different beast in terms of basketball. Like just every game, every possession. And then once you get to those NCAA games, it's one and done. So you got fans that are there cheering you on and stuff, and then you just got to really, I mean, you got this one game scenario where anything could happen. You got to prepare for every situation possible. So I mean, just playing in those games, I mean, means the world to me. The fact that I was able to do it, 3 times, and even win a game a couple of years ago back in Rowan against Babson in the tournament is just super awesome feeling. I mean, just to be able to, go out there and compete in the NCAA tournament was awesome.
And I think Coach Coffey, the run that you guys have had over the last 4 years, and I've had him on the radio show, and I'll have
Right.
him on here pretty soon. But I had to go back and look at the last 4 years, and these numbers are crazy. So in 2020 to 21, you guys were 10-2. That was the shortened season.
Right.
Well, I think you guys had a really good team that year too. That would have been
Right.
a fun year to see how that played out.
Yeah.
The following year, you guys go 23-4. Then you go 23-5, as you talk about. You guys got it at large into the NCAA tournament. You beat Babson, which was a great win for you guys.
Right.
And then 23-24, you guys go 24-4. So over 4 years, you guys have won 80 games. You're 80-15 in 4 years. I'm like, what? That's unheard of for a 4-year run.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just from what Coffey has built. He's he loves basketball. He played himself in college at Oneonta, and then overseas in Ireland. But I think it's really just it comes down to him and the players he recruits. I think he looks for good people, good guys, not just people that are going to be good on the court for him. I think he looks for people that are good overall people, have good morals and stuff, and are going to get it done on the classroom and be a good locker room guy. But I think it's just from really what he's built, from the weight room to just what he's putting into our guys, all the time and effort, and especially the assistant coaches with Luke Fretzel, Zach Zoll, Fretzel being from Westmoreland, another local guy. But I think just them really digging in, putting in the time. And as a player, you might think it's a lot, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're winning championships and going on the records like those and runs like those, you're having 21 seasons. You're definitely not going to complain at the end of the season. You might be complaining in August when you're running on the track, but you're not going to be complaining in March when you're winning championships. So I think it's just from really what he's built. Keeping guys accountable. Getting the maximum potential out of guys. I really think it's just, him and what he's built that has helped us, lead to our success.
So I've interviewed over the last 10 years a ton of coaches at every level. And I feel like right now I'm sitting here interviewing a coach because you're so well spoken for. What any coaching in the plans for Damien Call? Like what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I'd want. There's a couple different routes, coaching or if I wanted to do training, like train kids or, some people have even talked about like reffing, like trying to make my way up into like college reffing. But I actually just picked up a job, not a job, but just a little coaching side gig with my teammate from Frankfurt, Levi Spina. He was on my team this year.
Yep.
So we're coaching just a 7th grade team right now for AAU basketball. It's called MVE Elite, out in Mohawk. So it's just a little 7th grade team doing a couple tournaments around here. But I don't really know about after that coaching, training, reffing, what I want to get into. But yeah, I don't really know too much yet what I want to get into. But just starting off with that, trying to help develop some 7th graders, from the Valley. So.
And I'm assuming I wish we could say you had some more eligibility left and we'd see you back for another year. But any more eligibility to keep playing?
Nah. I mean, no more eligibility. I mean, you never know what. I've had some teammates play overseas. I have a teammate on the Albany Patroons team in the TBL in
Yep.
Albany Justice. So never know what's going to present itself. I'll probably try to put some film together. Send it out, see what will happen. Never know what can happen. Overseas or even in the States. Just figuring that out. I definitely think there's a chance, especially with the success I've had at Utica and the back-to-back championships. I think the winning definitely helps. So I don't want to say for sure it's definitely like the last time I'll play or it's my last year eligibility. It definitely is for Utica for college. But after that, professionally or overseas or anything like that, only time will tell. So yeah, we'll see about that. I'll definitely send some film out somewhere.
Well, listen, man, you were so fun to watch throughout your career. I loved watching you play basketball. I think all of us Romans that are tuned in here this morning would say the same thing. And I remember your first game as a high school kid, and then continuing on to Utica. You've done some great things, and I know Rome's proud of you, man. And best of luck to you. Keep in touch, and I appreciate you coming on this morning with me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Rocky. Always been there since RFA. No, I remember you always supporting since then. So no, I appreciate all the support.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Best of luck to you. Keep in touch.
Yep. Thank you. I'll see you.
You
Have a
got
great
it.
day.
So that was Rome's Damien Call, and when I say I've interviewed a lot of coaches, and I have, which is awesome, but I felt like I was talking to a coach. He's so well spoken for. He's a true professional. He represents Rome with so much class, and I remember watching him in his first game, you know, at Rome, and then his career at Utica University, and I think it's really neat to listen to a kid talk about what made him choose, Utica and how special it is. And I say this all the time, and this isn't a knock to any athlete in this area. We've had a lot of good athletes come through here, and not many of them have played at the Division I level. But I always say this: if you're fortunate enough to get out there and watch a Division III basketball game, baseball game, softball, whatever it is, Division III is really good basketball. If you're fortunate enough to play at any level as a high school kid, especially the way the world is today with college athletics and the NIL, you're not seeing a lot of high school kids get recruited to some of the bigger schools because of the NIL and because of the transfer portal. So if you haven't gotten the opportunity to watch any level, especially Division III, it's special. And he had a really, really, really great career, and nobody did it better with class than with Damien. So I appreciate that. So we're going to jump from one to the other. We're going to jump now, talk some Syracuse sports with one of my favorite guests who's been on with me now. I think I was on Sportswatch on the radio 10 years ago, and I think Scott was one of the first guests that I had on, and he's always fortunate. I'm always fortunate enough to have him jump on with me when I reach out to him. So let's bring Scott on, talk some Syracuse sports. Who knows where we're going to talk? We might talk everything this morning with Scott, but let's bring him on. Scott, how you doing, my friend?
It's a pleasure to be on with you, my friend.
Well, I was just saying here, I think I was on the radio for, I think I hit 10 years, and then I said to myself, let's do the podcast thing, just because my kids were getting older and it was so hard to commit to a live show every weekend. And this has really been a lot of fun. But I think you were around with me when I first started.
I think it was one of the originals there. So shouldn't we get a pin or something or some recognition for that or whatever? No,
Right.
it's always great, and I always enjoy. You know how I feel about my hometown, and I feel about you and your family and stuff. So it's always a pleasure. And anytime you want me, just let me know.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. And Syracuse hoops the season just ended, and I watched the ACC tournament game against SMU the other night, and we heard the news that Coach Autry is going to be back. I think, Scott, I was one of those guys, and Medicis and those guys they heckle me all the time because they say, well, you're not a Syracuse guy. You always badmouth the program. And I was one that said, unfortunately, I would move on, just because, again, the way of the transfer portal, the NIL, I just think that he's really struggled there the first few years that he's taken over for Coach Boeheim.
I think there's a lot there. I'm going to start out by saying that I don't know if Red Autry is a good head coach or not. I don't know if anybody does right now. It hasn't looked well, particularly this season. This was a team that played sporadically. I think the injuries to Freeman and JJ Starling, you missed him for I think 7 or 8 games. I think that really hurt. But even if I was trying to project, even if Freeman had continued to play, had not gotten hurt, he was the highly touted freshman, probably I think the highest ranked incoming recruit since Carmelo Anthony.
Yep.
If let's say like he had continued to progress, and was a double guy every night, they would have probably had less problems scoring, but they still were a flawed team defensively. But going back to this whole thing, there's a lot at work here now, Rock, that wasn't a factor, several years ago, and that is the whole NIL thing, the collective, how much money you are paying guys, and you and I may not like this, and I don't. What college sports is becoming. It's a big business now, and it's just really chaotic. But Red Autry, I will blame Syracuse. I will blame John Wildhack and Syracuse for not being ready for this. Essentially, in that if you look at, I'll give you a comparison. If you watch last night's ACC championship game between Duke and Louisville, right? Well, if you remember, Rock, last year Louisville was terrible. I mean, they were terrible. They were the worst team in the ACC. And how did they turn it around? They hired a new coach. He brought in all his guys, essentially. And they also, if you look at it, they had a budget, an NIL budget, name, image, likeness budget there of I think over $4 million to pay their players. Syracuse, meanwhile, was slow to the game. And I think their budget was somewhere around the 2 million mark. So look at the disparity you already have. And again, I don't like it, but the reality is that you better be, if you want to play with the big boys, you're going to have to pay the big boys with the big boys. And I don't think Syracuse was prepared for that. So I will cut Red some slack as a result of that. I mean, look at the guys they lost. The kid to Duke, you got Richard is a prominent player for Rick Pitino, right? And St. John's, and St. John's has a massive amount of money that they paid for their players this year. So, so there's a lot at work there. All that said, I don't like the way Syracuse played this year. There's certain things I think as a coach, and Rick Pitino is a perfect example. I don't particularly care for a lot of his shenanigans away from the court and stuff. He has not been an exemplary person necessarily, but he's a great coach. There's no denying that. And the thing that I'm impressed with is how hard St. John's plays, particularly defensively. So there's a couple of things as a coach and as a player that you can always control, right? You can always control your hustle, your amount of hustle. That's the energy level. You can control that regardless. Your shooting might be off, this and that. And I think the other thing that's an indication of a team that plays hard is a team that gets after it defensively. Defense is effort. And we see how many players do we see that are very good offensive players but can't play on the other end. So there's a lot at work here. And, Red Autry has a great class coming in next year, including Carmelo Anthony's son. He's got a highly rated. So we'll see. But as a friend of mine said, he's got a great recruiting class, so don't make a change or whatever. But can he coach? And I go, I don't know. He might be. I've covered sports long enough, Rocky, to know that there are some people who are great assistant coaches, great coordinators, are not head coaches. It's a totally different thing, as you well know. You've got to be kind of the CEO of your entire program. and you got to be responsible for everything. Whereas I'm a position coach or whatever, or a coordinator, I have a unit. And so that's, and it's a whole different thing, as you well know.
Scott, a lot of people say, Syracuse is, and like many schools, Duke's done it. They've kept it in-house with these Duke guys and the Syracuse guys. And you look not too far down the road, and you see the year that Jerry McNamara had at Siena. Now, he didn't make the NCAA tournament, but I think GMAC won 14, 15 games, which was a huge turnaround. And many thought that he was the guy that would follow Boeheim with, big favorite on Syracuse, can recruit. Does this do anything for him, being that he decided to step away from Syracuse, take his own program? He had some success in year one. If it doesn't go well for Autry next year in year three, is GMAC a possibility, or do they go outside the Syracuse norm?
So, Mom, I had a very unpopular view of this whole thing last year, in that I felt that you should have conducted a national search for a coach. There's real dangers at times of staying in the family, so to speak.
Yeah.
How many businesses have we seen sons and daughters have ruined, have taken down, that they inherited from their father or mother. And I really think, despite all the challenges that Syracuse is facing, particularly with, getting money to pay players, and this is a big, big issue throughout college sports now. I really think it's still a very good job, a very attractive job in college sports. You've got great facilities. You play in a conference that's down, admittedly, and has some work to do in terms of catching up, basketball wise, and in football and stuff. And you have great television exposure. So I think it's a great job, and I would have opened it up for a national search, and I think you could have gotten a brilliant, young coach who could have, done some things here. Now, again, that wasn't going to happen, because Jim Boeheim, and many people will say rightfully so, deserved to name his successor. I don't necessarily agree with that. Just as, he saw Krzyzewski did the same thing at Duke. He saw essentially North Carolina do the same thing. And it's not uncommon for a legacy coach to demand that right to pick his or her successor. Again, I think it's kind of a flawed idea necessarily. If you conducted a national search and then you came to the conclusion, Rocky, that, well, Red Autry's our guy, even after doing all that, fine. Okay, you made that decision. But I think you could have. I think this is a plum job, despite the fact the program is, no question, the program's down, and this has been kind of a 10-year decline, or even more. This is, Syracuse is essentially a 500 program in the ACC and ACC play since they joined. What was it, 2013? I think is when they joined the ACC. So they've got a lot of work to do. And so I guess this has been a long-winded answer of saying that I think he deserves one more shot, and that's it. Because you got to move on now. The way things are changing rapidly in the landscape of college sports.
Scott, if we go back to the play on the court this year, they didn't shoot the ball fairly well at all. I think they were just over 30% from the three-point line, and I think, they were below 50% from the field in general, and they turned it over a lot too at times. And I know Starling had the injuries, and I thought when he was healthy, played really well down the stretch for Syracuse, but little sloppy play during the year. They didn't shoot the ball fairly well. I know that's something Autry can't control, but got to shoot the ball to win games, right?
Yeah, the nature of basketball, right? The way it's changed. I call it the Steph Curry effect, right? The 3-point is it. The 3-point shot is such a incredible weapon now. I don't particularly like the way the game's played as a result of that, because you've got a lot of just chuck it up, and you're not running offense. And Syracuse, I don't think they ran the offense very well. I don't really think, Rocky, looking back at the season, I just never felt they had a good point guard, a good quarterback of the offense and stuff to run it, or calm things down, or know what to do. Like instead of this, there just didn't seem to be any structure to this offense. How many times did they get shot clock violations or down to the last minute and have to chuck one? You worked all that time for that. So that's an issue. And if you want a pet peeve, and this goes back to Boeheim, this drives me absolutely nuts as a former, youth league basketball coach. Can you run inbound plays? Syracuse has historically had problems getting the ball inbounds. It's a basic. I'll give you a mimeograph sheet with 5 plays to run, right? Like, come on. Like, and if 6th and 7th and 8th graders can comprehend that, I think that guys who've played their entire lives travel ball on AAU should be able to run an inbounds play. So anyway, but that's a little aside that again is part of like when you get back to criticism of coaching, like that's a fundamentally unsound team, But yeah, I can't remember the kid's name, but they have a great 3-point shooter coming in from Australia next year as part of this class, who's highly rated. And I think that Carmelo's kid is a very good 3-point shooter. Will it translate in the college game? We'll see. They've played high level AAU and high school basketball. We'll see how it translates, but there's a lot of work to do. They need to become a better 3-point shooting team, and that means not having one 3-point shooter out there.
Yeah.
You pretty much have to have 3 or 4 shooters, in today's game to be effective and not be able to take away those shooters. You know what I mean? Like you have strength in numbers, so to speak. And defensively, they were just to me, or a horrible team that faded in the second half. And it's a combination of things, right? Like complementary basketball, shooting the ball well, playing defense, running an offense. There's a lot of things there, and they were not a great free throw shooting team, so that probably cost them a handful of games as well.
Yeah, you mentioned since you were pretty much spot on, Scott. When they came into the ACC, I got them at 99 and 88 in ACC play, so they're just over 500. Since joining the ACC, and you watch now the Big East with Pitino coming in there and St. John's, who I keep saying if he had some shooters. I mean, St. John's is really good this year. Imagine if he had some shooters. How much better they would be. But you look at this Big East and you sit there and say, man, wouldn't it be pretty cool to see Syracuse back? Bring the old Big East back with Georgetown and Villanova and all those teams to see them. But I know there's no chance of them ever going back to the Big East. But man, it'd be fun. The Big East has been good.
Yeah, good. But again, I really worry not merely for Syracuse, but for probably, I don't know, however many hundred of programs out there that, we're trending towards a super conference or 2 super conferences. And unfortunately, I have to place the blame on greedy football coaches at the highest level, and athletic directors at Big Ten and SEC schools. They've really ruined this, and they're greedy, and they're going to eventually get their comeuppance, because if you go form, let's say, 2 20-team or 20-school super conferences in sports, right, at a big-time level, well, I hate to break it to you, but not everybody's going undefeated. Right. You're still going to create the haves and the have-nots. I mean, let's say, for example, how is Northwestern going to compete in that super conference with the dollars that we're seeing in Ohio State? And I've talked with friends about this, and I really think the state schools have such a tremendous advantage, because they essentially have this enormous pool of money. And think about it, how horrible this is, really, if you really break it down. So a Penn State or Ohio State, taxpayer money is essentially going to pay these exorbitant salaries for football coaches and a staff that's enormous, and money, to pay the players, and whatever. I mean, what was it? Ohio State's football budget or something was $20 million this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best team that money could buy. And I don't know how a Syracuse, a smaller private institution, or many of these other schools can compete down the road. It's a chaotic, greedy situation right now on all parts, and I don't like it. But I also realize, like, at some point you're going to have to set up some structure for this. And I had proposed, like, you want to go, like, say, 7, 10 team divisions and one big conglomerate major college sports league, like the NFL only have 10 divisions or whatever, or 7 divisions of 10 teams, in a perfect thing. Like, I always thought that had the old East Indies, which were football schools that essentially you were talking Penn State, Syracuse, West Virginia, Boston College, Pitt, Maryland. You could throw in the Navy and Army if you wanted. That was for the longest time, that was the ECACU. It was an
Right.
independent conference, but it made perfect sense because you would have decent football schools in there, right? With historic programs and stuff. And that would have been the ideal situation. And again, like, Penn State's not leaving the Big Ten, or what is it, the Big 16 now, Rocky? I
Right.
however many, my math's not good, neither is theirs. But that would, so do it geographically that made sense. Come up with, this conglomeration of 70 schools, and I just throw that figure out there, and have things, again, conferences make geographic sense. Cal and Stanford playing in an Atlantic
Yeah.
Coast conference. And how stupid is the whole thing, really, when you boil it down to think about it, Rocky, the Olympic sports, the non-revenue producing sports. So I got to send my field hockey team, my women's field hockey team, or my men's volleyball team from Syracuse to Cal, let's say, on a Tuesday night. How much is that costing me? I mean, it makes no sense. Plus, how much time am I taking away from the student athlete from class time just to
Yeah.
get to the coast? And even if I go out, like, okay, they're going to go out and we're going to play 2 games out there because Cal and Stanford aren't that far away. Even then, it just makes absolutely no sense. And it's all about greed. And I'm really down on, on the athletic directors and university presidents who really don't care. It seems at the highest levels. Like, I got mine, I don't care about the rest.
Well, you're seeing now in college. I mean, North Carolina with Belichick, they brought in a GM, and you're seeing more of these schools now bring general managers in and running it like professional sports. And really, it is, right? Because we're paying the athletes. Um, Scott, real fast, I know a lot of Syracuse fans want to talk Syracuse football already. They were ready to move on. You got Syracuse lacrosse that's on right now, and they're always fun to follow too, the women and the men's side of it. I looked at the Syracuse football schedule for this coming year, and I said, Fran Brown got a good one in year 1. Now year 2, it's a much tougher schedule for the football team.
Yeah, this is, I think, what was it, ranked like the 13th, and the only ones are maybe Big Ten and SEC schools who have to play a number of their own, under the new new arrangements and stuff. But yeah, this is a brutal schedule. Not only is it tough, like when I think they're playing. Well, you're playing Notre Dame, you're playing Miami, Tennessee. You'll open up with in a neutral site, but it'll be more of a Tennessee site. Let's
Yep.
face it, down south in Atlanta. Yeah, there's something like they have like 4 playoff teams, I think, and they're all on the road. You're playing like Notre Dame on the road. You're playing Tennessee essentially on the road, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and that's why I try to say, and you're doing it without Kyle McCord. You don't really know who your quarterback's going to
Yep.
be. It's brutal, and I try to tell Syracuse fans who tend to be impatient and want to run people out of town very quickly. You better have patience with Fran Brown, and you better not say, because if Fran Brown, I'm telling you right now, Rocky, if Fran Brown goes 6-6 with that schedule, he really merits Coach of the Year recognition. I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal, and it's all on the road too. Most of that, the major ones. I mean, Syracuse fans will get to see the hoodie Bill Belichick come into
Yep.
the dome. That'll be kind of fun. But yeah, so Fran's he had the largest high school class coming in. I think he's doing things right. I think he's done a thing that I really like, and that is he's really rebuilding the bridges that were broken down by recent Syracuse coaches in terms of developing relationships with high school coaches throughout New
Yep.
York State. Got to do it. Mac knew you had to do it. Pasqualoni knew you had to do it. And so there's Fran Brown participating at the Turning Stone,
Yep.
resort at the New York State high school football coaches concert. You got to do that conference. You got to do that. And I think he understands the value. You have to build relationships with coaches, and you have to give back. You have to give back to the high school coaches as well. So you got to give the guy time. I mean, it could be a 4-win year, and it would be understandable. But you're building something here, and he's got a lot of really highly touted high school recruits here. You got to give them time to mature and physically, mentally, emotionally. It just doesn't normally happen as a freshman, So, particularly with the big boys up front, they got to get physically stronger in order to play at that level. So, yeah, it's brutal, but give Fran a chance to build something here, to truly build something.
So Scott, favorite day of the year for me is college football and watching the New Year's Day bowl games. But today's probably right there with it. We get the selection show today, and then we can fill out the brackets, and we can start arguing who should have been in, who got left out, and so forth. Without seeing a bracket, who do you like?
I still like Duke if Flag comes back
Yeah.
off that ankle. I watched them. They're an exceptional team. I mean, I'm very intrigued, Rocky, to see, are we going to have 12, 13, 14 SEC teams? And they will be deserved. It's a super basketball conference right now. Who would have thought that a football conference, but it also gets back to that whole general thing. So I'm intrigued to see which SEC schools, they'll probably have a couple number one seeds, I would think, and just how many are there going to be. But if I really had to get pushed, and that's with the caveat that Cooper Flag is going to be healthy enough to play on that ankle, and maybe if you're trying to buy some more time, Rocky, you don't play him in the first game. It's always dangerous, of course.
Yep.
But Duke should be able to beat a 16 seed without. I mean, look what they did last night without him. That was a pretty impressive. They gutted out a win in the championship game.
Yeah, I think with him playing, even if he's 85, 90%, and I'm not a Duke guy, but I think they're the best team. I think he's the best player in the country on one of the best teams. So I think they make a good run. I'm anxious to see what Pitino does in St. John's. Like I said, if they can shoot the ball fairly well, I think they can beat anybody. But those SEC schools from Florida, Auburn, Alabama, I mean, Michigan State, there's so many teams I think that seeded 1 through 8, maybe even 1 through 10, got a shot to win this thing, depending on who you get paired up with.
I'd open than ever, to be honest with you, even given the domination of the SEC and so forth. I think, I think it's going to be really interesting. And Pitino, like you say, I just think that perhaps they don't, they just don't have enough offense, because there's going to be. But again, we talked about this earlier. You can always be consistent with your defense, as long as you're not getting whistles going against you too much, and you get some guys in foul trouble. But that's the thing that's impressed me most about the job he's done at St. John's is he has. That coaching is really being a salesman. You need to get your players to buy into what you want, and he has gotten them to buy into. We got to play 40 minutes of hell here on defense. We're gonna, right from the opening tap, we're coming at you, and we're gonna keep coming at you, and we're gonna wear you down. That can take them on a run. It really could. But do they have enough? When it comes to that championship final, when it comes to the Final Four, and you got to make some shots, man. It comes down to that. You better have some offense to go with that, because unless you can't play the Villanova stall against Georgetown. There's a shot clock now, and you gotta have some offense come out of that. But their defense does lead to a lot of offense too.
Yeah, it should be a fun tournament to see who gets in today. I know I'll be looking forward to that later. I already told my wife, "Don't bother me for an hour while the selection show's on," and then she says, "Well, the selection show's over. Now I'm watching the guys break down who gets in and who gets out." So, well, Scott, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I know we'll do it again soon. I always love talking to you. I always say you're one of the mentors for me that if I can follow in your footsteps, I'll be successful. That's for sure.
Kind of you to say, and like I said, I always enjoy coming on with you, and I wish you nothing but the best. And keep at this. This is great what you're doing, and you've shown so much initiative. Just keep at it, man, and just keep expanding.
Well, I appreciate it, Scott. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. So that was Scott Pitoniak, and like I said, coming on, I think Scott was one of the first guests that I had on when I joined the radio station here at WKAL 1450. And anytime we talk Syracuse basketball, Syracuse football, I mean, you name it, I've always reached out to Scott, and he's always been great to come on. He's had a great career, and like I said, he's one of the mentors for me. Um, I keep saying I wish I was a young guy, but he's been fantastic. So I want to thank Scott for coming on with me here this morning. I want to thank Damien Call, who was fantastic. If you missed the interviews, I'll put them up later. They'll always be on the social media channels. For podcast listeners, I'll have it up on Spotify, iHeart Radio, Apple Podcasts, and all that a little bit later on tonight as I do some cut up. Sorry about the mute piece here. The first 2 minutes of the show, I had some mic problems before I jumped on the air here this morning, but I appreciate you staying with me here as always. So, on behalf of the entire crew, which I promise we will get you Pags, Medicis, and the Statman on here at some point in time. We're all busy running around with the kids and stuff, so we will get us all on here and bring the gang back together. So, on behalf of the entire crew here at the Mohawk Valley Sportswatch and the Rock Pile, I want to thank Damien Call for joining me. I want to thank Scott Pitoniak for joining me here this morning. And thanks to Coach Pags, thanks to Coach Medicis and the Stat Man. Have a good weekend, everybody. I'm out.